What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involved in the markets, which you should be watching for tomorrow, as you're going to see some very, very interesting volatility for the markets, in my personal opinion. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon in just about 12 days. Anyways, for the markets, let's break down what's happening so far. Looking at NIO as right now, we're on a bit of a downtrend as we had this high at the $6 area, Then we came all the way down to the 200 EMA at 5.24, rebound just a little bit in the morning before we continue to sink. And overall, NIO is kind of dipping a bit. We also have this gap to fill all the way down here at the 5.08 area, which does suggest that a little bit more downside is possible before we see the share price attempt to bounce again. So I'm going to break down more details about the overall market. I'm going to talk about some news about NIO, as Envo is getting a lot of headlines after something very important that William Lee Bin said about NIO that's very bullish for the long term. I'll break down all of that first before I break down these charts. As a reminder, we had initial jobless claims coming in as expected for today. And going into tomorrow, it's going to be Friday, May 17th. We don't really have much coming up, but we do have Waller from the Fed giving a speech, and that's pretty much it. Nothing else too crazy. Now, I also want to note that when it comes to earnings, this is what the calendar is looking like so far. We're about to see Applied Materials announce its earnings, just a few more going into tomorrow, but everything else has been done with. Everything else is very minor. And we ended up seeing Walmart's earnings pretty good, at least for today. I went over that at least earlier, and that's pretty much it for now. For more data, tomorrow we have quite a bit of options expiring. We have close to 800,000 of these calls expiring overall, and we have over 3.4 million puts expiring, with the 513 max pay and 4.37 being the puts to call ratio. The majority of positions on SPY are in puts, and we'll have to see if this leads to a squeeze, or at least SPY holding up a lot better than what a lot of people are expecting. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. In terms of more data, I just want to call out that the Fear and Greed Index is currently at greed. Markets are greedy. We're seeing more buyers stepping in. We're also seeing a big shift in market momentum as greed is making up the majority of momentum. The puts and call option positioning is dropping, right over here, as more and more of these puts are being closed, more calls are being bought. Market volatility is still neutral as the VIX is still holding support in the 12.4s. So we'll be watching to see if the VIX gets a bounce or not. We're at some critical supports, and the market's also testing some resistance. As far as SPY goes, meet Envo, NIO's new smart EV brand launched on the International Day of Families. That's very, very great news for them. I went over this yesterday. It's a new product, the L60, which is going to have a lot of contributions and more potential with more affordable pricing. But there is something very important about it. I want to talk about this right here. Envo is going to contribute positively to NIO's P&L when it reaches 20,000 monthly sales, according to William Lee Bin. As they continue to grow, they're getting closer and closer to profitability, and this is going to be more profitable for them and more positive as time progresses. So that's good news for them moving forward, as NIO has seen a lot of growth right now, and their overall gross margins have still been around the 20% for the first 3 quarters of 2021. They've been reduced quite a bit because of price cuts and such, but things will improve thanks to this new vehicle once they get their sales volume to increase. That's going to be very, very critical for the way that we are moving. Moving forward, JP Morgan has upgraded NIO from an underweight to a neutral rating. We're also starting to see a little bit of a shift right here in terms of other pieces of data. Seasonality tends to be more and more volatile around 11 o'clock a.m., 1 p.m., and also during the final hour of the day. And Fridays have a tendency to be in green only about 53% of the time for NIO historically. Now, despite this, the volume is still at about 42 million. So we're getting low volume right now. NIO is not as volatile as before. But what do I think is going to happen for tomorrow? Why do I think there's going to be a big move for the markets? And here's my answer, guys. NIO is kind of downtrending right here. We do like to get projects off for 50 to 20 EMA range. So I do think NIO could actually pop a bit before coming back down. And if we end up losing 5.26 to 200 EMA, we could actually come down to fill this gap just a little bit more to 5.08 and then bounce after that. So look for a little pop and drop like move, a drop to fill this gap, then a bounce, and we'll have to see what happens after that. But for NIO, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. We had this nice top over here in the $6 area. We got a big bar to the downside. We're actually downtrending slowly, so I could see us actually come down to fill this gap and bounce. And we watch and see what happens after that. Now, for more data, I just want to call out that when it comes to other factors, looking at the way other stocks like SPY are moving, SPY pushed all the way up towards that 531.5 area. We're kind of dipping a little bit. I'll be looking to see the 4 hour just to double check something, but I think we could dip a little bit more towards 528. If we end up losing that support, we could be looking for 526.6 before we try to bounce. But let me just make it very clear, the buyers are not dead in my opinion. I think the buyers will return and still try to fight back. So look for a test of 528. If that fails, we might go a little bit lower to 526.6, then a rebound back up and see some sideways price action, at least going into tomorrow is the most likely possibility. There might be a little dip coming, but watch and see buyers defend later on. I think that's the most likely possibility. As far as Tesla goes, I want to call out something very important. Tesla has a possible head and shoulders like structure that could be developing. Once I pull up, let me just show you this right here on the hourly time frame. On the hourly, there's a possible head and shoulders, but you could also interpret this as a trap. So if this is a trap, you honestly Tesla break past 176. If that breaks, we'll be looking for 178. If you end up rejecting off this 175 area, we're going to be looking for a move all the way down towards 172. So watch to see if the head and shoulders plays out or not. We'll be very, very patient nonetheless. If it does start playing out, watch 172 on Tesla. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 168. So just wait and see how Tesla ends up moving. As of right now, this is a strong possibility that head and shoulders plays out, but watch the levels just to be safe and for confirmation. For the triple Q, the triple Q is kind of rejecting here. We're barely testing 452. Watch resistance at 452. If you reject, you're going to be dipping down towards 450, then bounce. If we don't reject, if we actually break through this, watch for 453. So I think we're going to be retesting 452.25. We will see if we get a rejection or not. If we do, we're going to be dipping a little bit lower towards 450, and then we'll be watching for a bounce after that. This might dip a little bit more. That's more probable, so we'll see how we end up reacting. Apple's holding up very well, but we're just kind of shuffling. So we have 190.5 as resistance, 189.5 as support. We're kind of trading sideways right now. 2 straight days of just sideways price action. So we'll see which way we end up breaking, but that's all I'm seeing for now on Apple. And finally, we have the one and only Nvda. Nvidia is kind of dipping a little bit. We're actually below our support at 944. So there's a risk of us actually dipping a little bit more towards this imbalance. Look for 938 and eventually 935. So we'll be watching to see which way we go. We also have resistance at 944. So just know that we are on a bit of a downtrend on Nvidia. It could dip a little bit more just temporarily and continue to affect the markets. For the memes out there, GameStop is actually looking a little bit more bearish. It could continue to fall all the way down to about 25 or 200 EMA. AMC is also looking a bit more bearish. We'll be looking at 4.37, and I do see some more risk in the markets. The VIX is actually trying to hold 12.4, so we'll see if we get a bounce around there or not. Overall, it does like to bounce off this area, at least historically, for this entire year. So we're going to see if this gets a bounce or not off this area, and if the market gets a rejection or not. So just be very patient, and we'll see how things go. With that being said, guys, as far as NIO goes, let me just mention this one more time that NIO, NIO likely has a little bit more downside coming. We could retest our key EMAs 5.3 to 5.4, then reject and come back down to fill this gap towards 5.08. I think that's a strong possibility. Then we might bounce after hitting the low fives to make our move back up. So I do see a little dip coming for NIO before we try to rebound. That's the most likely possibility. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Thanks again, and peace out.